Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode number 56 of Speaking from the Heart. Today, we're going to take on the numerous opportunities that you might have been resisting to do because you are resistant to change. You might not even realize at this very moment that you are stuck in a rut, and you might need to be crawling yourself out of that hole, that ditch on the side of the road, regardless of whatever obstacle that might be facing you, forward, backward, above, or below. You might be unwilling to change yourself because you want to stay complacent in just where you are at. Does that sound familiar? I know for many people that I've known for most of my life, they have been stuck in one position and they have been unwilling to move forward. Now, some people are just happy being where they are at because they have found their true calling and they're doing what they always wanted to do. And for those that are listening to this episode, thank you for doing that and being able to find your true worth in this ever-changing world. But I know that we are still a society, especially in the United States of America, that is always striving to find the ways in which we can move forward, but we're still stuck in the same position that we have been in for maybe a year, maybe for 5 years, maybe for 10, 20, or even 30 years for that matter. I want to explore some of the reasons and what might be holding you back from being able to see that perspective and maybe finding some ways in which you can take that bold new direction in your life to achieve the ultimate best version of yourself. I have to caveat this episode. There's a lot of things that I'm going to talk about that might be uncomfortable, but it is all about self-examination and seeing where you can go to be able to do this. So if you have to, stop this episode right now, grab a pen and paper, or open a document on your computer and start taking notes, because I know that maybe this might be something worth exploring. I've had a few clients since the beginning of this year when I opened Your Speaking Voice actually approach me and ask me, am I thinking about this the wrong way? Am I going through life always thinking that this one person or this one thing that keeps happening all the time is because of what I've been doing? Is it something that I can change? Is it the way in which I have to motivate myself to go from that one direction to another? Can I find the ways in which I can explore this on my own so that I don't need a coach to help me out? And I have to tell you that you are in luck. You can find the ways in which you can navigate through all those different ways and all those different things. But you have to understand that to open yourself to this possibility, you have to really take yourself out of your comfort zone. To really say to yourself, is this the way that I should keep doing it time and time again? Number one, as to maybe some of the reasons in which you might be holding yourself back. And it is because of being fearful of what change looks like. And we've already covered this in another episode in which maybe fear might be holding you back. So if you haven't listened to that episode, take a stop on this one, go to that one, and play that one along, because you might be able to find some ways in which fear can expand your comfort zone by just shackling it into a container. But maybe this next reason might be part of your problem. And that is the fact that when you go through change, you start to feel a little anxious and a little uncomfortable about what that change might look like. And it's all about really how people might present it to you, especially if it's in a professional setting, but more importantly in a personal setting, being able to ask questions or even provide feedback to that person about what that change might look like, especially as it impacts you. The worst thing that anybody could ever do when they're going through change is not communicating what that change might look like. And it doesn't mean that you, the communicator of that change, if you are in that position, have to know all the answers. I always find that having that human connection or being able to feel comfortable about sharing that change that might be happening and the reason behind that change is always the best advice to give to especially a hiring manager or somebody that is in a management role that is going to make a very important decision that might change the face of what the company operates in. Time and time again in the news, you even hear about people not communicating that definition of what that change looks like and not being able to effectively sell it in a way that they should be selling it. But I think that we often get stuck in that change when we are not even hearing what the other person is saying because of the way in which they're talking and the way in which they are sharing it, but maybe even it's the person that is sharing it. Because the last thing that I would want to find out is a rumor that is true, and I heard it from a coworker when I should have really heard it from my boss. When I should have heard it directly from my spouse, but instead I heard it through their friend. These are the things in which sometimes we have to take a level of responsibility about understanding how we can create that change in our own lives and being able to share it with somebody else, especially if they know that it's going to be very impactful and which is going to be something that we have to be prepared for down the road. But I know that for many of us, we often feel complacency in just living that life that we always have, because if we have to change, that means that we have to put extra effort into it, and we don't have that time for change. So that third reason is really about the time that is spent, along with the fact that we are resistant of being willing to go to wherever that common ground is. Because it means putting something into it. It means putting some sort of level of commitment so that we're able to keep moving forward, to keep pushing ourselves into a direction that we feel ultimately comfortable about. I think that we have to understand that not only are these reasons and many more contribute to this overall thinking of why we are resistant to change, but why it's important to keep moving ourselves forward. Why it's important to keep saying that no matter what other people might say, do, or think, that it is still okay to keep pushing forward. I have been through many of those experiences, especially even doing this podcast, thinking about the ways in which I feel I might be communicating my message, the ways that I think that I might be repetitive in sharing that same message in a variety of different formats over and over again. But we have to understand that when we talk about this bigger subject matter of just changing, in which we are able to share what is the ultimate fruits of our labors, it isn't just about bragging rights. It isn't just about the rewards that come along with it, but it's about learning how we have created shared experiences through that have allowed us to see what we ultimately can become. In other words, being able to have a witness or even a written testimony or a verbal recording of it that allows us to understand why that change took place overall. Historical books from all time, thousands of years since human civilization has started, even going back to when we had different types of human evolution happening. It had all been recorded in one way or another, whether it's through the fossils that we have examined, whether it's through the parchments that have been preserved, whether it has been even in electronic files that have been digitized, especially in the last 40 to 50 years. It has all been about looking at ways in which we can preserve that history so that we can learn from it, in order for us to understand how we cannot repeat those same mistakes again and again and again. That is why it's been so important for historical purposes, even through literature and even recordings for that matter of some of the most famous of people, even the most common of individuals being passed from one generation to another, to be able to examine and relearn what has transpired as a result of all these things that have been happening at a certain period of time. We can do the same thing in our own lives, which I've already given several examples in other episodes about the ability to just journal, to be able to listen to each other, to be able to overcome through meditation and pausing, all these different ways in which we can become the best version of ourselves. But to really push back on it, not only is it important to just have a coach that helps you to understand some of those fallacies that you might be experiencing. But it's really about the reflection time that we give ourselves to understand where that path might have taken us in the first place. Oftentimes, we don't spend enough time going through and reflecting on what has been the lessons learned. Emergency preparedness, which is something that I've been able to accomplish in one time or another in my extensive Commonwealth career, has been something of a true opportunity for myself to continuously learn and grow in ways in which I can reflect on what went wrong and what are ways in which we can prevent this from happening in the future. It's allowed me to be critical of some of the thought process and development of what is key to understanding and growing within not just the things that we need to do to grow, but to also help us understand how we can evolve in our own way of thinking. In other words, how can we take a situation that we continuously face time and time again from ever being repeated in the future? Do you want a more practical example? Think about the people in your life that might have been through domestic violence. Just jumping from one person to another that you know from the outside might not be the best fit for them, but they're still going through that process. Or maybe that person earning that money that has been hard earned and it's hard to keep because your partner or maybe somebody else has swindled you out of those thousands of dollars that you've been saving up. Hasn't that been a pattern that you've been neglecting to address for so long? But what if it's actually at the heart of what you look at? Now, I'm not claiming that I know you, my listeners, very well. And it's something that I continuously explore, that if you want to have this conversation with me, I would love to hear from you. Reach out to me at podcast@yourspeakingvoice.biz, and I'd love to have a conversation with you about some of your own unique struggles. But what if you are struggling with your own way in which you adapt to deal with your own confidence, to deal with the individuality that you have inside yourself, to accept that maybe some of the things that you've been thinking about yourself or even reasoning with yourself are really the things that are causing your own demise? What has been holding you back from really understanding what that thinking process is? How can you process that thought that you have about yourself in a more healthy way? And I know that that might be the toughest thing that you will ever do. That means actually challenging maybe some of those beliefs, maybe some of those religions that you practice. Maybe there is more than one religion that you do practice. But maybe it is just the people that are telling you that you're not good enough, that you'll never amount to anything, that you're never going to be able to challenge where you are currently at because you're always going to be stuck in that one place, in that one thing that has been holding you up for so long. Whether that's dealing with pornography and the addiction of sexual tendencies, whether that is death in the family, which has been holding you back for so long and creating some of those issues that you have deep inside yourself that you have never been able to communicate, or maybe it's just the simple manner of being able to have that difficult conversation with someone that needs to happen sooner rather than later. I feel that we have this resistance to change because we have not just the unwillingness to do it, but we also are afraid of being able to see what those results become. That's why we protect ourselves from it, having that level of privacy, having that ability to shield ourselves from the ultimate destruction that it might face. What if you were to think about this resisting change as being that destruction that you're creating? It might not be as loud or vibrant as maybe a piece of dynamite exploding, but maybe that noise and that effect that a piece of dynamite has already been happening in your life, and you just haven't yet faced it for what it's truly worth if you just embraced it and took care of it right here, right now. I know having that perspective to change yourself is often the most difficult thing that you will ever face, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible to do. Owning up to that responsibility means challenging not only the beliefs that you have, but also challenging what you think other people's beliefs are. Because you might be dealing with a situation that affects multiple people. They might think of you differently. But what if you were able to challenge yourself to think just a little bit wiser, a little bit smarter? Because you did realize through that self-confidence that you're gaining, the relationships that you are building with others, and that determination that you have to be willing to change instead of resisting that change actually happened. Have you ever took time to envision what that new world would look like if you were able to do that? I think that for coaching, especially for somebody like me that has been through the gambit of life experiences and challenges that I've been facing for the longest time, it means being able to say to yourself that you are worthy of seeing that change go through. And I think that you are worthy of seeing that change go through too, if you're just willing to explore it. To be able to say to yourself that you are willing to become something different as a result of all these experiences that you're going through, because you are worth that change. I have preached considerably on other episodes about that importance, along with my guests, because it has allowed them to see some of the most successful of entrepreneurs, whether they're making 6 to 7 figures or more, become something that they never thought possible. So my question to you today is this: are you ready to explore those changes that you've been putting off for the longest time? Are you ready to set yourself in a bold new direction to help yourself achieve those best versions that you might have yet to achieve? Are you willing to say to yourself that you can do this, that you are capable of not falling back into the same patterns over and over again? Because I think that you can resist change, but change in the sense that is negative. Positive change is something that you can embrace if you're just willing to change your mindset and stop avoiding some of the same reasons that we've explored in this episode from being able to control you. Because you are in control. No one else is, and I know that you can do it. Even if you have those numerous opportunities that face upon you in this ever-changing world, you have the willingness to stay the course and be able to communicate that, because in that new world, you are successful. You're no longer held back from those true beliefs that you felt, that you thought were actually the right things, because you are now acting on the right things. You are making that 6 to 7 figure career. You are achieving what you were meant out to achieve. Because you have to achieve that. I'm counting on you. We are all counting on you to not only contribute that with your wonderful voice that you have, but your willingness to teach a whole new generation of what it means to be responsible for your own mistakes, to be able to be responsible for the change that you're going to become. And as a result of that, I can't wait for you to inspire me in what I have yet to come. Thanks for listening to episode number 56 of Speaking from the Heart, and I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.